this is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 344 of Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by INdigital as well as Rapid Deploy, but this episode is going to be an INdigital exclusive. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It is September 14th, 2020, and we're just a few weeks away from Dare to Be Great #2. That's going to be October 6th through the 9th, and there are some amazing speakers. I believe there are 20 conference speakers, 3 keynote speakers, and there's about 12 or so industry partners that are taking part in the vendor hall session. So this is going to be so good. It's one that you do not want to miss. So make sure to head over to withinthetrenches.net/conference so that you can register there. The registration is free, and you've got 4 days worth of amazing speakers, sessions, training, what have you, everything. So make sure to head over there and check it out. The first one was just, I don't even have the words. The first one was simply amazing, and the second one is going to be just as great. So make sure to head over once again withinthetrenches.net/conference and register for free for the Dare to Be Great Fall Virtual Conference, October 6th through the 9th. Also, a big thank you to patrons. Thank you to Deborah for becoming a patron of the podcast. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do without all of you patrons, especially those who watch, listen, and support, and my sponsors. So thank you all very much for all of that. If you want to jump in there as well, you can go to patreon.com/WTT podcast. So let's get to our guest. And my guest today is Ryan, and he's a systems administrator at Gallatin County, Kentucky. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
I am doing all right. You know, it's definitely getting into fall time because I think it's about, I don't know, it's in the 60s over here. Kind of nice, kind of brisk.
Yeah, it's probably 63, 64 degrees here. It's got my sinuses acting up, so if I clear my throat, I apologize.
I am right there with you. So if I do that, and for everyone watching, yeah, I apologize as well. I woke up and they were just acting up. So I used some nasal spray to kind of clear everything up. And right before, you had sent me an email saying that you were in your office and you were ready to go. And as I'm reading it, I think I sneezed about 10 or 15 times. No joke. I was just sneezing and sneezing. I thought, man, what the heck is going on? Like, I thought this stuff was supposed to just clear it up, but it must have irritated something because I started sneezing like crazy.
It's the Ohio Valley, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah. 80 degrees one day, 50 the next.
Oh, man. Yeah. It gets me all the time. But it's getting better. It's Monday. It's all right. It'll be okay.
Funny story. I was yesterday. I do a lot of mowing. My parents own some property, and you know they've retired to Florida. So I've got a 0-turn mower, and I haul it up to where their property is and keep the grass mowed. It's approximately 8 or 10 acres of nothing but grass. So it's a lot of mowing, and you know I've got allergies, and then the weather being the way it is, when I'm mowing, I like to put my AirPods in and just kind of like, you know, it's kind of like relaxation time, get away from the fire service, get away from the dispatch center, and just I'm out there mowing. It's just me, and I'm listening. And I was listening to episode 342, your Imagine Listening. Yes. And let me tell you something. I gotta thank you. That was some next level stuff.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is that session was that was awesome. I mean, that was the first time I've ever done Imagine Listening virtually, and it was on IM 911 day, and it worked out
Yeah.
perfectly. Now I do have to ask you though, as you were saying, with your allergies and everything, and that much land that you're mowing, I mean, are you wearing like a full on gas mask? Does that
No,
affect you?
no. I'm used to it. I've had allergies my entire life. So
Mhm.
basically, I'll look at the pollen count, and if the pollen count is above about 50% or so, I'll wear like just a normal surgical mask that you see everybody wearing today. I've been doing that for a couple years while mowing, because it keeps all that dust and stuff from getting in and causing me to be sick for 3 or 4 days after I mow. So I'll wear one of those if the pollen count's high, just because when you mow, it just disperses it, and then you're running back and forth through it. So but normally I'm good. It just depends on the pollen count.
Oh man.
It's the worst in the springtime. In the fall, it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
So you're a seasoned veteran
Excuse
then.
me.
So you know
Oh
about
yeah, yeah, for sure.
it. Oh man, I can't even imagine. We used to do some mowing for a church that we went to, and I would act up all the time. I was a teenager at the time, so I didn't think to put a mask on, but it's a good idea. That is definitely a
Yeah,
good idea.
yeah,
So we've been in contact with through email and everything, and I was reading through your story again this morning, and wow, there is a lot that you have in your background. So to start off, and for the audience and everything, how did you get into public safety to begin with? Because it sounds like you come from like a law enforcement family.
I do. So my father was a police officer at a very, very young age. Well, he was a police officer when I was born, ever since I could remember.
Mhm.
And then around 1989, he retired. And he started, while he was a police officer, he ran and operated his own business. It started out as a towing service with one gas station in northern Kentucky in Kenton County, and he just built on it and built on it and built on it. And when he retired from law enforcement, he focused on that 100%. And by the time I was in college, his he had 5 super pumpers, is what they called them then.
Mhm.
That was branded Shell Oil. That's where he ended up retiring from a second time. So both my parents are in Florida now. They're enjoying the good life. They're outside of Daytona Beach. So
Oh, beautiful.
my cousin is a FBI agent. He's a special agent in charge, and I think he's in the it's outside of Miami. It's not downtown, but he's somewhere outside of Miami. He's in charge of that field office. My uncle was a retired Kenton County deputy sheriff. My grandfather was a deputy U.S. Marshal Reserve officer, and they don't do that anymore. But apparently, it has to do with transporting of federal prisoners.
Oh man.
So, um, you know, it's definitely in my background, and when I was young, that's what I wanted to do, and I just, I realized that I didn't have the personality, and that's a big part of it. You have to have the personality to be a police officer, and I had a love for the fire service, and that's the direction I went.
Nice. So I not a lot of people know this. I think I've mentioned this maybe 2 or 3 times in the 300, some episodes that I have here, but I at one time had gone out um to test to be a state trooper in Florida.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. Like I passed the physical, which um I made an embarrassing fall during the physical.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was ready to go, but I had to do the 100-pound like dead weight. Like they had a body, a dummy that they had there, and it was 100 pounds, and it was
Right.
dead weight, and you got to pull and pull and pull. I don't remember what the distance was, but I remember halfway through my what was it? I think it was my left leg, maybe, just completely cramped up and it just went stiff. And I fell back. When I fell back, my right leg went up and my shoe flew off my foot. And I hear the sergeants there and lieutenants are like, "Get up, Martinez, get up, get up."
Yeah.
And I get up and my leg was still messed up, but I kept going and pushed through it. And I pulled it all the way and I got through the end, and I passed the test even with that fall. But I remember one of the sergeants there saying to me that I had a lot of heart, or that I have a lot of heart, and that I need to eat more bananas.
Yeah. Yeah. A long time ago, 18 years ago, I tested in Florida as well. It was I can't remember the county name now. Southern Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the county name, but did they do your test, like, since you were not from there? Did they do it in, like, you went down for like a week and they did everything in 1 week, and then you knew whether you had a conditional offer of employment before you left?
No,
Is that how they did yours?
No, well, because so during that time I was actually living in Florida. So I was living there. I think I was 2 years into my living there. I didn't plan on living in Florida. I had actually just gone to visit for a couple of weeks, and it turned into a month. And then it's where I started my dispatching career. And our records clerk, her husband was a trooper, and he had told me to go and try out. So when I went out there, they did the physical on one day, and then they did the written the following week. So they had it split up. But so the one that you were doing, though, it was a whole week thing.
Yeah, I remember the name now. It was Collier County.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know the director there
Do you really?
for 911.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in Florida, Kentucky is so much different than the rest of the country. In Florida, if you want to work for the sheriff's department in Florida, you're a deputy sheriff, and after a certain amount of time, you start in the jail, and then you roll into patrol, right? So I had left school, finished school in Richmond, and came home and was working in a detention center trying to find a job in law enforcement. And a good friend of the family retired in Kentucky and got a job as an SRO in Collier County. And he was like, "Oh, you need to come down here. It's great," and blah, blah, blah. So I started the application process. And if you live out of town, they accelerate it. They cram everything into 1 week. So, like the first day you go in for an interview, right? And then at the end of that day, they tell you before you leave whether you made it to the next level. And then the next level, if you go in, is your polygraph and personal history questionnaire. And they tell you at the end of that day whether or not you made it to the next level. And then you go for an oral board. And then after the oral board, then you go for a physical agility. And then after the physical agility, you come back in for another sit down. And I don't know, maybe the other one is the sit down, and the last one is an oral board. But at the end of that day, whether you have a conditional offer of employment. And then the last 2 days of the week, they are doing your criminal background investigation, and they're having you meet with a physician for an actual medical physical. So by the time you leave at the end of that week, you have a conditional offer of employment to work for them. So it was a really neat experience, because growing up in Kentucky, even northern Kentucky, which I consider northern Kentucky pretty big compared to where I'm working now.
Mm-hmm.
And Collier County, it was a whole different level. I think it's like one of the largest counties in the state, isn't it?
I'm not for sure. I know it's a pretty big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. And there's the Seminole Indian Reservation is there, and there's a casino, and I think they've got like 70 schools in the county.
Oh man.
Yeah. and so on and so forth. So it was a neat experience. And at the end of the day, I was given a conditional offer of employment, and I don't know, my life would have been very, very different if I'd have took it. I was seriously dating my wife at the time, and she went down with me, and we went and were looking at condos and had put a deposit down on one and everything. And at the last minute, she was just like, I can't leave my family. I can't just take off and leave my family. We weren't even married yet. We were obviously going to get married, but she changed her mind and decided she didn't want to move to Florida. And I had a choice to make.
Right.
I chose her over the job. So,
Well
and
done.
it's all good. It's all good. I don't regret it a bit.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Yeah. My whole thing, mine was nothing like that. Obviously, I'm not a trooper now. I didn't, what kept me out, because I had actually, I aced the written, I had everything going for me until it got to the background check. Now, my background was fine, but they take their credit scores very seriously in Florida. And I think I was just a couple points off on the credit score that they wanted me to be at. And I remember asking why that was such a big deal. And they said, well, responsibility. And, if you're hard up for money,
it makes you more apt to make poor choices.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And after the guy told me, I was like, all right, I understand. I get it. And so I didn't.
There's a rhyme and reason behind it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Others have asked me the same thing, and they're like, well, and then I explained the same thing. They're like, okay, I get it. I'm like, yeah, I didn't at first, and I thought it sucked, but I understood, and it still worked out because, I mean, here we are. I continued my public safety journey. I have still kept going on with 911 as a 911 dispatcher, call taker, and supervisor and everything. So it worked out. So just like you, yeah, it worked out, man.
Completely. It did work out. It worked out good for me.
So you end up starting out in the jail, right?
Yep. I started out working in county corrections. So like I was saying earlier, Kentucky is so much different than the rest of the country. The Commonwealth of Kentucky actually has a separate elected official that runs the jail. They're called a jailer. So in every other state in the country, the sheriff of that county is in charge of the jail and runs the jail. So a lot of people start out in law enforcement. They work in county corrections, and not just in Kentucky, but across the country. But in Kentucky, you work for the jailer. So, and that's where I was working when I applied at Collier County. I was working in the detention center in the county jail and trying to get my feet wet and get some experience. And I ended up doing that for 7.5, almost 8 years. And just that experience, and it may not have been a good experience, because there's two kinds of people that that start in corrections and leave. When they leave, they either leave to go into law enforcement, or they leave because they don't want to do that anymore, or they leave because they were doing illegal things, or they were not a good employee, or those kinds of things. So I realized in that environment that I didn't want to go that direction with my career. I didn't want to be in the jail forever, and I didn't think law enforcement was right for me. Some of the things that police officers deal with, and they just have to sit there and take it and keep their mouth shut and so on and so forth. I'm not able to do that. I'm too blunt of a person, and some people like that, some people don't. But I realized that wasn't the career path for me. And the whole time I was working in the jail, well, not the whole time, later on, the last probably 3 or 4 years, I'd started volunteering on the fire department in my community. And I really, really enjoyed it. And while I worked there, I ended up getting my EMS license through the state of Kentucky. And I really liked that part of it, providing patient care in the EMS field. And I said, I think this is what I want to do. Like, for a career. And I just kept my nose to the ground and kept at it, and ended up starting out as a part-time employee for a career department, and moved into a full-time position, and I'm still there 15 years later.
Man,
So
how much was it different then between working in the jail and then being out in the field? Like, how was that for you?
well, I really enjoy being out in the field, number one, and that's one of the things that has always gotten to me about dispatch,
Mhm.
because you're stuck in here, you're trapped, and I like being out in the field. I like being able to move around. I like being outdoors. I'm an outdoors kind of person, and in the jail, it's just like that. You're stuck. You're inside. The smells are terrible. uh, so
Oh, I can't even imagine.
yeah, human beings are interesting.
Yeah.
you know People can do, just people can do the most amazing things, and then people can also do the most terrible things.
Right.
So it's just it's just interesting, and it's a different, it's just different. I don't even know how to put it in words. It's just different.
Yeah.
I've had my nose broke. I've been headbutted. I've had feces and urine thrown on me. And so on and so forth. I will tell you this though. I don't regret that experience either, because it taught me things that you can't just learn on your own, I guess. You have to experience them, and those things, it taught me how to talk to people before anything else, because even though some people that are incarcerated, they don't act normal, they don't act appropriate, they still understand if you just get down on their level and talk to them.
Right.
Okay. If you don't hold yourself above them and you try to empathize with their situation, then, you can get through to them. Some people you can't. Obviously, there's exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, if you talk to them and so on and so forth, you can get through to them. But at the end of the day, the large majority of adults in a correctional atmosphere, we were seeing the same people repetitively over and over and over again, and it wasn't something that it just, I felt like I was just spinning my wheels. Like, I could sit down and talk to a guy today and
Mhm.
say, man, you really, I understand. He would say, man, I'm tired of this life. I'm tired of it. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in jail. I want to be out with my family, and I want to see my kids, and so on and so forth. And I was like, well, this is the thing. Only you can make a corrective change in your life.
Right.
Only you can do that. You have to be committed to it, and persevere and actually make that change. And during the conversation and a week after that, I felt like that conversation made a difference in that person's life. And then bloop, he teleports right back in, and you're like, I thought you were going to make a change, man. And, and then drugs obviously have a lot to do with it.
Right.
A lot of people have the opinion that, they chose to use drugs, but there's a certain level of addiction that you're not choosing anymore. And, there is no, they have no choice. And if you ask them when they were sober, if they wanted to live that way, they would absolutely tell you no, but they cannot, physically cannot. And then, the other side of me says, well, that decision you made originally is what put you here. So you made a bad choice. It's your fault. Right. So it's kind of a hard topic, but anyway, that experience in the jail really taught me a lot about people and communicating and so on and so forth. I had a lot of really good lessons there, but I didn't want to do it forever.
Man.
So
You go through all of this, you're experiencing this, you're learning so many different things, and then you end up moving into, as well, on top of all the other disciplines that you're working in public safety, into dispatch. What is it like for you then, in the beginning? What is that like? Everything that you're looking at now, you've got this adding on as well. How much more different is this going into it?
So I think I understand your question correctly. So how much is dispatch different than my other experiences is basically what you're asking.
Right. And what was it like for you in the beginning?
So in the beginning, working dispatch was kind of a means to an end, right? So while I was working part-time in the firehouse, I needed more income in order to make my life better, to build my house, and to support. I had a small child at the time. My wife and I had just had our first child, and babies need things, and I needed more income. So I applied at the dispatch center here, just as I figured, hey, and this is exactly what I said, and everybody watching, I know I could not have been more wrong. And you experience this just like I did, right? I said, how hard can it be? I'm a firefighter, right? Boy, was I wrong. So I took the part-time job. I figured, I'd work a couple days a week on the radios, and it'd be no problem. And I learned real quick that it was very, very, very different from the common perception of what happens in a communication center. So in the beginning, it was kind of like throw you to the wolves kind of situation.
Yeah.
They spend a week and a half with you and say, this is this is what this does. This is what happens when you do this. This is what happens if this comes over the radio. Here you go. Put me on night shift, and I was on my own, right? Like in 2.5, 3 weeks. So, yeah, we do not do things that way now. So
times have changed. Training and everything is a lot different.
right.
When I first started out, it was basically the same thing. I went in for the first night shift, and my trainer takes an 911 call and then looks at me and he says, "You're next." And that was that was my training. Excuse me, for that first night. He showed me the radios. This is what this is.
Yeah.
We got a medical that comes in, you transfer it to county radio is what we did, because we had first responders and such, but we didn't have an EMS house or anything right there. We had to transfer it to the county, and they did the rest, because we didn't do EMD or anything. We just got the pertinent information, got everyone else out there, and then transferred.
You were the PSAP.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was that main one. I was at a small police department there when I had first started out. So you you get this kind of a rude awakening on what you're getting into now. What was that training like for you then?
So the difficult part about it, and I think I kind of understand why they did things that way. Number one, when you throw somebody into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're going to figure out real quick whether or not they're going to work out or not. Okay.
Exactly.
And a lot of times, you don't have to be the person as a supervisor to say, you're not going to work out. We're going to have to let you go. They figure it out firsthand, and they're like, hey, this ain't the job for me, man. And they leave on their own accord, and it works out better for everybody. On the other hand, in Gallatin County, our call volume compared to all the counties around us is low. I think our call volume is high for our population and for the size of our county. But compared to everybody else that has a much greater population, our call volume is low. So it takes us anywhere from 5 to 8 weeks to train somebody to give them enough experience to release them on their own, right? And that's a long time, right, to be paying somebody that's not able to cover your schedules and so on and so forth. And we fight that battle a lot with our administration above our office to give us that leeway to be able to do that, because it takes us that long just because we're not getting shootings every day. We're not getting structure fires with entrapments every day. We're not getting industrial accidents every day. We're not getting, police pursuits every day, and all those things that that a dispatcher really needs to know how to handle while it's happening, so that they can do their job effectively. Because at the end of the day, you are the anchor that everything comes back to.
Right.
So, it's difficult, but we do the best we can, and that's I think that's all anybody can ask for, is just do the best you can.
We had a time where we were so short staffed that everyone at the center was a CTO, certified training officer. Everyone ended up being, we weren't actually certified, but we were all training because
Right.
that's how we needed to get people in there. And I think there was about 6 or 7 people that came in with one group once, and only 2 of them made it. Some of the ones that were coming in were from other disciplines of public safety, and it was kind of a same thing, like, how hard can this be? And they're learning all the geography, they're memorizing all the different codes, the ORIs, all this other stuff that they're supposed to do, and then they're taking non-emergency calls. Good. They're going. And all of us are thinking, oh, thank you, we're going to get some people in here, and we're finally going to be at least close to up to full staff, and we won't have so much overtime. Because the way it was working was there was so much overtime that was happening when we would volunteer to take ourselves off of the force in list. As soon as we were coming in for that volunteered overtime, we were getting actually forced in for like 2 other shifts as soon as we got there, because people were getting sick, and we didn't have a lot of people that were working. Well, then we get this group. It's like, all right, you're going to start on 911 calls, and they would get those phone calls, and just like you were saying, they would know it's not for them. As soon as that first call hit, they either froze or asked the trainer to take over, or whichever, or they took the whole call. And we all thought they did good, but to them, they realized, yeah, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah, it's difficult,
Mhm.
and that's why we try to set with those people. Number one, we bring them in for a sit along, right? We bring them in for 2 shifts, and they know that it's completely volunteer. We know they sign a confidentiality agreement, and we let them decide, do they think they can do this?
Mhm.
And then once they commit, yeah, I think I can do this, and then we bring them into training, and that if we're going to offer them a job, obviously we determine that ahead of time, and then we go from there. And training is much different than it was then. We put a lot of emphasis in making sure people understand what they need to do when this happens, right? And all those different scenarios, because there's nothing worse than something off the wall that doesn't happen every day happening, and they're like, oh God, what do I do? Right? Then when those mistakes happen and they start building, and they don't know that they've made a mistake, they start to snowball, and they keep snowballing, and by the time units get on the scene, a problem that was very small that could have been easily corrected is this big, and it's jacked the incident from word go. So
Right.
that's very important. So yeah, it was not easy, and my director and I were both exactly the same way, just kind of thrown to the wolves, and we actually went to the academy together, and now we're running the place together. So
That's right.
we tried to make things different from the way it was when we started,
And
because
that's a good thing.
right.
Yeah, that is always definitely a good thing. So at my old dispatch center, things have completely changed. When that time, I think one of the issues during that time, during that that summer, um, it was, we just needed people in there, and I remember specifically, if I could go back, I would tell those trainers at the time, how about you play some tapes for them? Because I don't think that a lot of the tapes were played for them. It was, you
Right.
learn this and this and this and this, and that part might have been left out. I don't believe there was a sit along during that time either. As years progressed, a lot of things changed. There were ride-alongs, and there were sit-alongs. Now, they would stay in there for, I think, a minimum of like 4 hours, because, as you know, sometimes you bring somebody in for a sit-along and nothing happens.
Yeah,
That
it's
person,
just you can't control it. It just nothing happens.
right? Yeah, and then that person gets a different perception of what 911 is. And I remember having someone.
It is. It's completely different too.
Yeah, exactly. And this person sitting with me, and they said, "Oh, well, this is going to be a piece of cake." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. You don't get it. This,
Yeah.
this is not, this is
Yeah.
not what
No,
actually
you
happened."
don't understand. This is a good day. Yeah. 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 And you're 100% right. Just, if you get into that situation and somebody has absolutely no clue, playing some tapes and what I like to do is I like to play, the really frantic caller. And then I like to play the person that's really, really rude and cussing at you. And then I like to play the really scary calls and so on and so forth. So they can get a good broad, this is what you're going to be dealing with.
Mhm.
And, they can choose then at the end of those couple of days. Can I be called everything but a white man and move on with it?
Yeah.
Can I listen to a mother begging you for help to save her child? We were talking earlier about episode 342,
Yes.
your Imagine Listening episode, and there was one of the dispatchers that got on and told her story about the drowning victim. Really touched home to me. It I guess it was probably 6 years ago.
Mhm.
I was probably 3 or 4 years in, and it was probably 6 years ago. So I've been in about 10 years now. So I took a call. It was in the middle of the afternoon, which is rare. Normally fires happen early in the morning, late at night, kind of situation. Entrapment fires. I'm sorry, and it was in the middle of the afternoon, and we got a call from a neighbor saying that there was a house on fire down the street from him. And, I'm talking to him, getting the basic information, and you're starting to roll, units out the door. And I get another 911 call, and it's populating on the map in the same area of where I'm dispatching that fire. So I told him to hold, and I went to the other call, and I'm in there by myself. So, and it's the mom, and she had fell asleep in the home, and she's obviously she's in between frantic and in shock.
Mhm.
And she's telling me that her 1-year-old is in his crib in the house, and the guy previously said the house was engulfed. So I'm asking her, how much of the house is involved in fire, to try and determine. And she goes, it's coming out of the doors and windows and so on and so forth. Like, she was barely able to get out, but this 1-year-old's in there. And then, she at one point in time broke down and is just like on her hands and knees, apparently. I mean, I can't see her, obviously. That's what I was told. And another neighbor picked up the phone and said, tell me what I can do. Tell me what I can do. And I'm like, you can't do anything, and I'm a fireman at this point. Right. So I'm like, you can't do anything. He goes, I'm going in there. And I hearing that mother's voice, and the pain in her voice, and this guy saying, I'm going in there. I'm thinking, I know what's going to happen to him. Right. I know that instead of one fatality, we're going to have two. Right. I know he cannot go in that structure. And everybody has their list, right? Their list of calls that they'll never forget. And that's one.
Oh man, did he go in then, or did he?
He didn't. I was able to keep him outside. I told him, I said, you will die. I'm telling you, I'm a fireman. If you go in that house, you will die. You don't have any gear. They're on their way. They will be there in just a minute. Okay. And then by what you're telling me, if that house is fully involved and fire blowing out of the doors and out of the windows, the child, you can't save that child. All you're going to do is you're going to perish. You're going to die in that fire. Do not go in there. I'm begging you. I literally told the guy, I'm begging you, do not go in that house. And he didn't. And, you know, I truly believe by the questions that I was asking the callers and what they were telling me that there was no other option. You know, the fire department got there pretty quick. The chief actually doesn't live far from there, and he first responded instead of going to the firehouse, and another guy first responded to live right down the road. They had gear with them, and they both made entry into the house. They had gear, had air packs. They both made entry into the house, but they did not have a hose line. So they made entry into the house without a hose line to try and rescue that child. And there was nothing they could do. It was fully involved.
Man.
But I'll never forget that mother's voice. Never.
Whew. Yeah, those are the ones there, like you said, they don't go away by talking about them like we're doing now. You know, and that's why that Imagine Listening is so powerful, because some of these stories that come out, from what I've been told from those who are telling the story, you know, they've been holding on to it for so long, and to be able to share it with people that understand, they feel so much better about it.
Yeah.
It'll always be there. It'll always stick with them. But because they were able to talk about it, they feel a lot better. And man, those are the ones that, you know, when I hear like you talking about this, there are stories that end up coming back to me. You know, I will, and I'm sure you've had times like this as well, where you're talking to family, you know, and you might be talking about work, and then, you know, a story or two will come back and you think, man, I haven't thought about that one in years. And I've been out of dispatch for 7 years now, and I did it for 13 and a half years. And sometimes I don't know how I'll get on the subject, but I'll be talking to my brother about it or something, and he'll say, "How did you do that for that long?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't even remember that call until you and I were talking about it, and it all came back." And he's like, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I think so. I'm all right." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, what you're doing with Imagine Listening is twofold. Number one, it's therapeutic, and we know this.
Mhm.
You know, we know that these traumatic incidents are therapeutic for dispatchers, right? For them to talk about it. Number two, it gives, if you know, your podcast is not, you know, it's not password protected for just dispatchers. The public can listen to your podcast, right? So it gives the public an idea about what we deal with, because the general public as a whole, and it's not just us, I'm not saying it's just us, but they really have a misconception about our job.
Right.
Okay. But the general public has a misconception about the fire service and what we do. And they have a misconception about the you know, police departments, police agencies, and what they do. So therefore, you know, it gives the public an ability to hear from us and what we deal with on a daily basis. And I think that is important to educate the public, because public safety is a very highly scrutinized industry.
Right.
And we're all people. And, you know, as human beings, you have to have that level of understanding. And it, you know, it needs to be there. And I think that is a lot of how we got to where we are right now in society, is people don't care about each other anymore. But that is a completely different topic that I will allow you to invite somebody else to talk about.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you know, Imagine Listening and I Am 911 is an amazing movement, and it's going to do good things. It really is.
Thank you for that, man.
Yeah.
Um,
It's already doing good things, but it's going to do bigger things than what we've already got.
right. And that's the power of storytelling, man. That's
Right.
in your story. I have no doubt that there's someone out there who is not only feeling it, but has experienced something similar. And they also know that they're not alone. That's one of the biggest things that I've heard people say is,
Right.
by hearing these stories or reading the stories that are in the photo album on the podcast page on Facebook, they realize that they're not alone. Now, with this call that you were just mentioning, was there a debriefing or anything after that?
There was,
Mhm.
and I heard from in episode 342, a lot of people. I was really shocked in today's day and age that it was like this, but a lot of the dispatchers weren't involved in them.
Mhm.
And we absolutely, and I was really thankful that we were absolutely involved in the debriefing. Here in our county, there was a debriefing, and it was good to get it out and talk about it. And not only that, in so many cases, we don't know the outcome, right? We don't know what happens. Now, in smaller counties and smaller towns like mine, it's a little bit less common because I know the deputies and the officers personally, right? The majority of them live here in this community. My daughter is friends with our police chief's daughter, and we hang out when we're not at work, and I'm friends with all of our responders, really. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. But we know a lot more of the outcomes than some of the bigger agencies and bigger cities where the dispatchers go home and they have absolutely no idea what happened. So having the debriefing gives them closure, gives them an opportunity to find out the results of what they did, good and bad. Because there are those stories where the dispatchers did everything perfectly, and it made a big difference in the outcome. And then there's those stories where there was just nothing anyone could do. It didn't matter who the dispatcher or the responder was. There was nothing anybody could do, and the story ended tragically. And it is what it is, and
Yeah.
and we can't control those situations. We can do our best to impact them, but we can't. At the end of the day, the decision isn't ours. So at the end of the day, the movement as a whole is unbelievable. Having those debriefings is critical. I was involved in our sheriff being shot. Not like I didn't shoot
Wow.
him, but I was involved in the incident, right? I was on the ambulance crew that responded.
Yeah.
And that was high stress. I'm in the ambulance with a guy that I know, and he's got a bullet hole in his abdomen. And if our ambulance had wings, it would have took flight that night. I promise you.
Wow.
I wasn't even fully in the truck until we made the right-hand turn onto East Main Street here in town, because the paramedic, he's our emergency manager now. I pulled up and he's pulling out on the apron. I jump in the truck and I'm standing on the running board of the ambulance, and he's already driving. And the only reason I ended up in the truck when we made the right-hand turn onto Main Street was because he made the right-hand turn and I got thrown into the seat and the door shut behind me.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it was all hands on deck for that one. And that was a high stress environment. And there was a big debriefing on that one. So, those are obviously very critical in those high stress environments. And for those people who say that it's not possible for a dispatcher to have PTSD, they are completely and utterly misinformed. They need to be educated. I will tell you that right now, because it's absolutely 100% possible, and it is there and happening all over this country. And that brings me to a point, and it's off I am listening, but I'm going to say this since I have a public forum to say it on. Dispatch centers are not ready for the full-fledged NG911 process of visual data. Okay, I cannot stress that enough. The audible stressors are enough now. I can't imagine some of my staff or any of some of the dispatchers that I know, seeing on their screen a FaceTime video of somebody blowing their brains out,
Right.
or a family mangled in a car accident. Okay, they're not ready for it. Okay, because the first responders that we have in the field, police and fire, look at how bad it's affecting them. The suicide rate in first responders is through the roof right now. And I don't want to see that in our field, because it's already high, but you throw visual stressors into it, and it's gonna be worse. I realize the benefits of it, but we need to take that in baby steps.
Right. Yeah. No, I am. Excuse me. I'm right there with you. I can't imagine what that's going to be like. So the last, let's see, the last year, I think it was, that I was in dispatch, Google had just started coming out with videos, just previews of their concept for Google Glass. And I remember thinking, oh man, that could be pretty cool. Well, then I saw a concept video that someone put together, and in the middle of the concept video is a 911 call, and it's someone who's having like a heart attack or something on the kitchen floor, and the dispatcher is watching this and typing at the same time. And I remember rewinding it and watching that over and over and over and thinking, man, I don't know if I'm prepared for that.
And
This is
in those situations where a dispatcher can see somebody and what they're doing and say, no, your compressions need to be deeper,
right,
and so on. So those are great things, but all of the other things that we hear, dispatchers aren't ready to see it. Okay, listen, I do it for a living, and there are times when I'm like, God, I wish I hadn't seen that.
yeah,
Right. And there are calls, just like I have calls in the dispatch world. There are calls in my fire life that I'll never leave me. I'll never forget them. Right. So we need to take that in baby steps.
What do you think are one of the things that can prepare dispatch centers to get into that? Because there are companies that are already jumping into stuff like this.
I know.
And I think, with all of this that we're doing right now, sharing these stories, all of this stuff, there's been a lot of push for mental health and wellness. That push is going to have to, I think, be even more so for different types of training, other ways to, to deal with those visuals.
There are centers that are really, they're out there. A lot of them are in, urban areas where they have all kinds of funding, and unfortunately, the almighty dollar drives everything. Okay, so there are centers out there that really have proactive and they're groundbreaking mental health programs within their agencies. They have quiet rooms, and they have enough staff that if somebody takes a bad call, they can go and they can de-stress, or they can, even depending on the type of call and how serious it is, boom, a supervisor comes in and says, you're off the clock, go home, we'll be in touch. Right. But unfortunately that's driven by funding, and there are way more than there are that can't do that. There's more that can't than can. I'm sorry, I'm tongue tied. But those ideas are important. And as far as what we can actually do about that specific, there's not a lot. I think you need to expose dispatchers to it gradually.
Right.
I mandate the dispatchers in training, they go ride 8 hours with law enforcement and 8 hours with EMS. Just because it's important for them to see that side of it, so that they know when you dispatch it, this is what they're doing daily. This is how they're hearing that call come in. This is what they're doing while they're en route. This is what happens when they get on the scene. And then this is what happens after they've made contact, and so on and so forth. And the whole process, it gives them a good global representation of what we are starting as dispatchers, what our job is, the beginning of a process.
Right.
It's not just we do what we do and it's over. That's it. It's not it, right? So,
Exactly.
I think that doing more of that will give them. It's just experience, right? Is all it is. The reason why PTSD for dispatchers is so different is because it's like that sudden shock. So if they experience it gradually, it won't be so. It won't be such an explosive emotion. So I think that's going to play a big part of it. And the other side of it is human beings are never going to get used to blood and carnage, because it's just it is what it is.
Right.
You can never ask a human being to forget the things that they've seen, because they're emotionally damaging, and you will never forget them. They're so impactful, and that's just the way the human brain works. It's just they don't go away.
I'm really glad that in the story that you told, that you were involved in the debriefing for that, because you said you're the only one that was there. And a lot of times, like some of the stuff that I did when I was at the small police department that I started out with, it was just me for 8 hours. And there were a couple times that incidents happened, and I didn't even know what a debriefing was until I moved back home to Southwest Michigan and continued my dispatching career in the county that I grew up in Allegan. So we didn't have anything like that. I remember one time taking a phone call, and one of the officers was there with me, and the caller was her brother. He was also an officer at the same department there, and a teenager had run a stop sign, and he T-boned the vehicle, and it rolled.
Right.
And I remember being on the phone with him, and he's just he didn't even know who I was. And she ended up jumping on the phone as well, and she's like, it's me, and it did not even register. And that, like, we had a little debriefing on our own with just the
Right.
three of us. We talked that out, and that helped me out. But that was one of those things that was probably one of the first ones involving an officer that I knew that kind of affected me a little bit. But it was
Right.
in that conversation that I was able to get through it and be fine with it. But just being alone there, I wasn't involved in a lot of debriefings. So,
and I had to finish the shift. Right. So it was day shift, 7 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened around noon. So I had to work till 3 o'clock, it was tough, and like I said, that mom's voice, I hear it to this day.
Wow.
When I think about it, it is what it is.
So as we're talking about, not only that, but also, the technology and everything that's coming in, that's going to provide, some of these visuals, but also visual data that comes out. There's a lot of different things. We can talk right now actually about how the whole pandemic is changing a lot of 911, and how a big topic has been kind of the virtualization of 911, how you can bring dispatch home, so to speak, and work remote. There are different ways that you can bring your dispatch center to a different place when something is going on, and you're able to set up shop and continue to do the work that you do from there with all types of different technology. So I love technology. There's some technology that's kind of scary as we think about all of this, but man,
Technology is great when it works.
Mhm.
And you asked me earlier what my title was, and I'm the systems administrator for this agency. So basically, my job is technology, right? Everything that has to do with systems here in the communication center. So, and you're absolutely right. With some things that I've developed on my own here, and with MEVO, I could literally pack up 2 Pelican boxes that are the same size, probably 24 by 24, and take them to my house, and I could field and dispatch from my recliner at home. Right now, would I have all of the features that we have in the radio room? No, I would not. Okay.
Right.
Could I physically do it? Yes, I could. Okay. Would it be reliable? No, it would not be, because both methods that I have to do it are single, there's no redundancy. There's single fail issues with those. Okay. Here in the dispatch center, everything is redundant. We have redundancy in every single system, so that if something fails, its backup will just pop right in. Okay. And I wouldn't have that at home, but I could take MEVO and a command post radio kit to my residence and very easily dispatch from my recliner, watching The Walking Dead or who knows what.
It's funny.
Mute 911. Where's your emergency?
Right. Yeah.
No.
And then they hear, like zombies in the background, like, wait, do you have the emergency? Are you okay there?
Yeah, no. But technology is absolutely coming. But like I said before, we need to be very, very careful how we implement that technology.
Right.
Because, with every action, there is a reaction. And in a lot of cases, there are adverse reactions or unintended reactions, okay, or an unintended repercussion, okay, that just is a result of what you changed. So we need to be very, very careful with it. And that's just my opinion. And there are people that will say you're wrong. You're wrong. No, this is absolutely going to make things better. I'm not saying that it won't, but there are going to be unintended repercussions with it, especially with video to 911 and PTSD and those emotional responses is absolutely going to be an unintended repercussion of that technology, and I don't know that anybody can argue that.
Right.
So we need to figure that out. I don't really know. People a whole lot smarter than me need to put their minds to that and try and figure out what we need to do. But I think it's just exposure and having a proactive mental health program. That's that. But we have talked about everything but what we intended to come on here and talk about, really. And that's fine. I enjoy talking to people.
No, this has been really good. All of this has been excellent. That is a huge point in public safety today in 911. It is a big thing. But just really quick, as we were talking about the whole MEVO piece and stuff and how you're able to use it and all. You guys had a chemical fire where you ended up using this, right?
Correct. So where I met you,
Mm-hmm.
you were working for INdigital, and you came to the bid response meeting for Northern Kentucky. And number one, we're really, really fortunate to be where we are and to have the neighbors that we have here in Gallatin County, because we were on a networked phone system with the entire tri-state area here in Northern Kentucky. So it was all the Northern Kentucky counties. It was the 3 counties in southeast Indiana and all of southwest Ohio, and everybody that's in the Cincinnati Bell coverage area.
Mm-hmm.
So Cincinnati Bell was not only do they have the selective routers that handle 911, but they also provided the call handling equipment, and it was just part of the fee that we paid to them, right, to have that call handling equipment. And Cincinnati Bell, a lot of things happened in Cincinnati and in Northern Kentucky. There was several calls that without getting too deep into them, problems occurred, right? And there was no one single person that was to blame, but Cincinnati Bell took the brunt of that heat, and they were like, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to provide you with the call. Here it is, hand it off, and that's it. So they gave us a year to come up with a new call handling, a new piece of call handling equipment, and we put it out for bid. And INdigital was obviously one of the bidders, and that's where I met you.
Mhm.
And their product was what we liked. They answered all of the requirements in the bid spec, and all of us as a region, the directors at Boone, Kent, and Campbell, and me here in Gallatin, we just we felt like it was the best option for us. And just to sweeten the deal, they gave us MEVO as part of that deal. And early on, I don't know that any of the other PSAPs even opened the box and played with it and did anything with it. It was, it was something they put in the supervisor's office. It was like, hey, if something happens and we lose our phone connections, we get this box out, call the number on the sheet that's under the lid, and the NOC will work you through it. Well, I'm one of those people that learns from experience, right? So as a kid, if I wanted to figure out how something worked, I took it apart, right? So as soon as I got this thing home, I'm like, let's figure this thing out and see how it works and what it does. And I figured out that even before you call the NOC and activate it to take your 911 calls, it's got its own number. And you can call right into it on its own number, and it's listed underneath the lid. It tells you what the number is. And we had this chemical fire, and I'm at home, and it came in at like 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hadn't even woke up yet. And I'm awoke to a phone call. And I've got the dispatch center's ringtone in my phone is the CTU desk ring from the TV show. Remember, I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, it is very distinctive. I know it's the dispatch center calling. It wakes me up. I answer, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, hey, we got a chemical fire. They're just arriving. It's down at this facility. I'm not going to mention any names. Emergency managers requesting you respond. And we really need to do some more work on it, but we've kind of established, and it's popular out west, is a tactical dispatch team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's 3 of us that are have a first responders background, that are also very seasoned dispatchers, and we have 2 Pelican cases, and they can put that in a vehicle, and they can go to the cold zone at the incident, and they can set up. They've got everything we have in the radio room right there, and they can take control of that incident and provide logistics and resources to that incident without it even going through the radio room, because there's only one of us. So just because that large scale incident is occurring here in Gallatin County, that doesn't mean that every other emergency stops. And that's obvious. Everybody has that problem. But in most centers that I know of, I don't know of any other centers in Kentucky that on a regular basis only staff one person. And listen, that is not the way anybody here wants it to be. It's just that funding in Kentucky is on the very, very low side. And it is what it is. So what I've tried to do as a systems administrator is I've tried to do things with technology and with other things in stepping outside the box and looking at different ways to take the heat off the radio room, specifically the dispatcher in the radio room. Okay, I've looked at new ways to do things so that they're not doing as much, so that they can focus on what's important, and that's that 911 call. So, technology's helped us do that, especially with MEVO. So with this chemical fire, they call me and they say they need you to respond down to the scene, and so on and so forth. So, obviously I frantically getting up and getting ready. Frantically is a bad word. I wasn't frantic. I was just very quickly,
Right.
getting dressed, and I didn't even brush my teeth that morning. I was straight from sleep, just out, put shoes on, grabbed the stuff, threw it in the bed of my truck, and out the door I went. And I'm responding straight down there. And I'm on the way. I'm calling the emergency manager, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm on the way. I'll be there in 4 minutes." Whatever the deal is. And he's like, "Okay, this is where I want you to go. Go ahead and stand up the command post," and so on and so forth. And we had kind of a plan ahead of time. We were pulling up weather and looking at wind direction because there's this chemical cloud, and so on and so forth. So we were able to directly at that incident. A lot of people are calling in because they're like, there's homes and things in the area. And we were able to broadcast through another service, another technological service, Code Red. We were able to say, send out a message to everybody within a certain radius. Hey, we are aware there are responders on the scene. If you are in this area, okay, and you have questions, okay, or you are worried about your residents or your health or whatever, right now there is no risk to you. But if you have questions, call this number. Do not call 911. Do not call the dispatch center's non-emergency number. We have people on the scene. This is the number you call. We gave all the numbers to the state fire marshal's office. We gave them our command post number, which is essentially the MEVO phone. We gave the state fire marshal's office that number. We gave the fire investigator that's coming, because it was some early thoughts that it may have been arson. The building was empty. It was during the night. They weren't operating. So nobody should have been in the building. So, and the way it started, it was just a little bit suspicious, but it was completely accidental. So, right there at the incident scene, I'm able to not only make calls outbound, I'm able to take calls. And then that number is always the number for the command post. And it's in our call handling software that INdigital has in our PSAP. So it's always the command post number. So if dispatch needed to transfer somebody that did call into them, they just transferred it right to that number. And then I answer, command post. And it gave us the ability, and it pretty much works anywhere. So it was really a groundbreaking thing for us, being able to do that.
That's awesome. It has been excellent, man, to have you on this episode, learn so much about you, hear your stories, and just your experience. Your experience is you're across a lot.
I've done a lot.
Safety. Yeah, that is awesome to have you on here and talk about all of these different things. Now, as we go into the wrap up of this, as a systems administrator, for other systems administrators out there who are listening, who are watching, and maybe just those in general who are in 911, one of the big things that we talked about, and I'm so glad that we talked about this as well, is preparing for these visuals. Now, you've mentioned a few things on there, but going even further a bit, what is it that you're doing for your center, and what should others really think about as we're moving rapidly into a lot of different technology of 911 and these visuals, pictures, videos, all different types of things, even live streaming. I mean, there's so much that is going to be coming into 911.
Right.
How are you preparing? How should people continue to prepare?
First off, if you have my job title or one similar to mine, and some centers, their director is the person that does what I do, right? I think it's important that you build a baseline. And if you are the director of a center and you're responsible for being the director and everything that I do, you need to find somebody that you can bring in to do those things and dedicate to that. So build the groundwork to that, dedicate somebody to the things, technology and the communication center. Because believe me, the technology we have is only going to increase. Okay, it's gonna get even more so technological. So having somebody that's good with that stuff and being able to delegate that to them, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Okay. And then start with whoever your governing body is. Me, I'm governed by our fiscal court here in the county. I'm not governed by a law enforcement agency. I'm governed by our fiscal court. And I'm very thankful to have the fiscal court and the judge executive that we have, because he allows me to think outside the box, and my director as well. To make decisions and to do things that like this, right? To help us. So go to your governing body and start building on technology. Make sure that they're behind you and explain to them, hey, we're really going to need to we need to make some changes, whether it be bring in more funding in other places, realign the budget, spend less in other areas and more in this area, so that you can start bringing, because let me tell you something, the MEVO is well worth the money. Okay. It not only does it provide you the ability to do what we've done with it in incident command, but it also is, your backup. If you have to bail out of your building, your 911 calls can come to that device. And it's as simple as a phone call. Hey, send it to my MEVO, and the knock will get that done. And having that ability is obviously huge, because the only other option is some other center that's already busy is taking your rollover calls because your system is down. And obviously, no dispatch center wants to put their burdens on another center. So having that ability is unbelievable. But you need to get your governing body and whoever is above you on board with that, and start there, and then just make them understand, because a lot of people are not technologically savvy.
Mhm.
They don't understand. Most people in general don't have any idea what is behind the dispatcher setting in the console. There's a lot there. I mean, there's miles of cable, there's computers through the wazoo, there's routers and switches and firewalls, and there's all kinds of things. And there has to be somebody there to manage that. And most people don't think it. They think it's just, hello, somebody talking on the phone, and it's more than that, right? So start there and build your footing and your groundworks, and then just step into it. Start employing more and more technology, and involve your people in it. Okay, involve your staff. Hey, ask them questions. Okay, don't just put them on a schedule and hope they come to work. Okay, ask them questions. What can I do with technology that will make your life easier? Okay, and you're going to get the smart asses. Obviously, I need a massaging chair.
Right.
Yeah, like I need a back massaging chair, or something like that. But you will get good answers as well. And if you can think outside the box and employ technology in a way to make their life easier, and that's essentially what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to take technology and place it in the life of that dispatcher to make their job easier and to make them more effective as well.
Awesome.
Right.
That is excellent, man. Thank you again so much for being on, and building that foundation, as you're saying, building that foundation and moving towards that. Also adding in the, the visuals, like you were saying, gradually in baby steps will be better than a
Right.
full on bam, there it is.
If they implement those visual stressors, like text to 911 was implemented, you don't have it, boom, here it is. It's not going to be good. So we really need to, and I don't know how to go about it. Like I said, somebody a whole lot smarter than me. We probably need to get psychologists involved and the head shrinkers, and start figuring out a way to do it. But we're never going to change human nature.
Right.
And unfortunately, people that do what we do, as dispatchers, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, we are all a very similar type of personality. We have an inner drive that forces us to do what we're doing and to be stewards of society and to help people. And because of that, these high stress situations and these events where people are being hurt, killed, maimed, whatever, they harm us as people. And there's just no way you're ever going to get rid of that. So we, like I said, somebody a whole lot smarter than me is going to have to figure out a way to where people can still be behind this headset and do the job and do that over years and years and years, because I don't know of any dispatch center that has hazardous duty retirement that can retire in 20 years. Most people are working 30 or plus. Right. So, 20 years of that kind of bombardment, especially the big centers that are dealing with, daily, homicides and shootings and so on and so forth. I really feel for those people. I really do. I don't know how they deal with it. And I'm in no way, shape, or form comparing my situations to theirs, because they are completely different, but we're all here doing the same job, and, we got to be there for each other and employ ideas so that we can get the aid that we need. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
I'm right there with you, man. Again, thank you.
And you're doing it.
For being on. I'm trying. The small part that I'm playing in this whole entire piece, it has been good. It's been an excellent experience. So thank you, man, so much for the kudos, for the support, for the job that you do and what you're doing to make things a lot better for your crew there at your center. So thank you again for being on. This has been excellent. And I will be right back with you here. For those who are watching, listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that is going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, it is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. This broadcast has been sponsored by INdigital, also been an INdigital exclusive, but also sponsored by Rapid Deploy. And if you want to jump on to become a patron, because without the sponsors, without patrons, and all of you who watch and support, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So if you are looking for any bonus episodes, early released episodes, ad-free, as well as discounts to the store, swag, t-shirts, anything like that, the behind the scenes series that I do, I've actually posted a lot of behind the scenes stuff here recently. You can go to patreon.com/WTT podcast. Again, thank you very much to all the patrons, and I appreciate it more than you know. This broadcast can be seen on Facebook as well as YouTube, and the audio portion of this can be heard 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one. And if you haven't yet, please make sure to go to WTT Podcast. Actually, let me start that again. If you haven't yet, go to withinthetrenches.net. So many things I had to remember, /conference, so that you can register free for the Dare to Be Great Fall Virtual Conference that'll be going on October 6th through the 9th, 2020. Have a good one.